He was asleep when the soldiers came at 4 a.m, the favourite hour of the burglar, a time when sleep is deep, senses dull, defences down, the most vulnerable hour of the day. Manny MacDonald, aged 13, woke to the sounds of dogs barking, men and women shouting, cursing, the trundle of heavy wheels, noisy engines, doors crashing, banging and being slammed, and then gunfire, curses, and the screams of children. In his drowsy state, he wondered if he was dreaming. But this was no fantasy. He had awoken to a living nightmare, one that for so many is as vivid today as it was that early morning of Monday the 9th of August 1971. The soldiers had known there would be little likelihood of meeting anyone up and about at that hour as they at first quietly, then loudly stormed into West Belfast Ballymurphy, intent on surprise and shock. It was too early even for a milkman. Few of the residents had any cause to rise early or to rise at all. This was a Catholic area, and Catholics who had somehow managed to find sympathetic employers willing to give them jobs were a rarity. Ballymurphy was already a byword for trouble, but none of the families living there were prepared for the nightmare that was about to rip through the grim streets. Not even schoolboy Manny, as he dragged himself to the window of the bedroom he shared with his brothers in Glenalina Road, and peered into the morning gloom, looking for signs of friends and neighbours. But the soldiers, in particular men of the renowned Parachute Regiment, the Paras, had an axe to grind. British Army dead had already reached double figures. One was a victim of a near neighbour of Manny. Another had died just a few hours before Ballymurphy found itself turned into a ghetto, in which only the undertakers would thrive. As the body count of their comrades mounted, British troops wanted revenge, even if those who would suffer most were innocents caught up in a war in which words became bullets and bombs. It is impossible for outsiders to understand the extent of the hatred that had built up between neighbouring Catholic and Protestant communities in and around Belfast. Republican Catholics felt deprived of jobs, votes and rights. In the main, loyalist Protestants resented those who wanted the North to become part of a united Ireland, suspecting they themselves would then become victims of the same discrimination that so angered their nationalist neighbours. Over the decades, planners and housing managers had inflamed the situation by partitioning families according to religion, perhaps ignorant of the potential devastation their policies would cause. Whatever their beliefs, everyone, even children and teenagers like Manny, were being sucked into the maelstrom of fear and hatred. Already by that August morning, the angel of death had reaped the first of what would become a monstrous harvest, and the first signs had been shown of just what lay in store as the seeds of trouble planted years earlier began to flower into appalling tragedies. As Manny was to discover for himself, so much of the grief that corroded Northern Ireland was not only caused by mere religious divide, but also by divisions within factions whose members worshipped at the same churches and perhaps even ate at the same family tables. Catholics loathed the province's police force, the Protestant-dominated Royal Ulster Constabulary. Yet the first police officer to die during what would become known as the Troubles was killed not by a Catholic, but by a Protestant organisation, the Ulster Volunteer Force, one of many set up to counter the Irish Republican Army.